So today is not a wonderful kind of day. PBS took down my Arthur video because of copyright, which, like, I understand, but they didn't have to give me a whole strike, jeez. They could have just forced the video to private and I would have changed it, but you know, whatever. I think they're probably just mad because I was trashing on the show. But anyway, here's the modified version of the video to hopefully avoid any copyright problems. Sorry, it's lower quality than the first video, but hopefully it won't get taken down. So, alright, let's get into the video. I pretty much grew up on PBS Kids, and while the network was home to a variety of memorable shows like Word Girl, Martha Speaks, and Wildcrats, one show has always stuck out to me in particular. Arthur was a huge part of my younger years. I would watch it every day after school for a few years straight, until they started playing it before I got home from school, and yes, I'm still mad about that, PBS. Nonetheless, Arthur played a big role in my development as a person, and I learned a lot from that show. One of the things that always stood out to me about Arthur was the fact that it often taught lessons about being a good person that were actually applicable to daily life, rather than how to add fractions or how to spell the word Wednesday. Wednesday? Okay, I got it. And not only was it helpful in teaching kids important social skills, it was also just a really entertaining and enjoyable show. At least, it was a good show. Or is that being unfair? Is quote-unquote modern Arthur really as bad as people make it out to be, or are we all just being blinded by nostalgia? From episode ranking polls I found online, it does seem like the general public agrees that all of the good episodes ended after around season 14. And modern Arthur, which I consider to be all of the Flash animated episodes, starts at season 16. Today's the anniversary of Arthur's first episode, and so I think it's the perfect day to find out what happened to Arthur. In order to find out whether modern Arthur has really dropped in quality compared to the older seasons, I picked 6 episodes, 3 old and 3 new, that have similar storylines and messages to each other. I'm going to directly compare the old and the new to see which version of Arthur handles the storytelling better. Let's get started with our first comparison. A is for Angry was not one of the episodes listed on the Community Arthur episode ranking I found online, but it is a personal favorite of mine, probably because of this moment alone. And then... Anyway, we're getting distracted. The other, more important reason that I picked A's for Angry is because it has a very similar storyline to Flippity Francine. In both episodes, the title characters receive an unexpected amount of fame and have to learn how to deal with the pressure that comes with that. For Arthur, it comes from him facing off against Brain in the checkers tournament, causing his classmates to turn him into some kind of sports star and worship him. For Francine, it comes from her wiping out on camera and Muffy uploading it to the internet, leading her to become a viral sensation. A is for Angry gets a lot of things right with this storyline in my opinion. The comedy is a bit exaggerated, and obviously this exact situation would not be something the average kid would encounter, but I think the enjoyable thing about this episode is the writers have just enough fun with it. It doesn't get too out of hand with its absurdity, but it still gets some good jokes in there, like Muffy's shocking news report or Francine riling the class up. I think this episode also does a good job of showing how short-lived and often meaningless fame can be. Arthur's supporters immediately turn on him whenever things don't go their way, despite their supposed loyalty to him. The episode also deals with the topic of competition, and how sometimes it's best not to get too caught up in it, which is another important lesson to teach kids. Flippity Francine does a pretty good job with its themes as well. Francine learns how to deal with fame throughout the episode, similarly to Arthur, and in the end she realizes that it's not all it's cracked up to be. Unfortunately for Flippity Francine, the jokes don't really land as well as A's for Angry's does. I mean, I don't expect anything to top this iconic moment, but anyway. Combine some subpar jokes with a much more unrelatable storyline. Okay, I might just not be up with the times, but instant virality like that almost never happens. And you get an episode that is more of a C than an A. A is for Angry wins the comparison in this instance, and it scores 1 point for classic Arthur. Arthur Accused and Reed and Flumbergast both have a mystery plot that parodies classic tropes, with Arthur Accused focusing on noir and Reed and Flumbergast focusing on courtroom drama. Arthur Accused has Buster trying to prove that Arthur didn't steal a bag of quarters that he was fundraising for the fire department, and Reed and Flumbergast has CW trying to prove that Tommy Tibble ate Bud's cupcake. Arthur Accused has all the markings of a classic Arthur episode. Everything about it is a little underproduced, a little lower quality than it should be as a TV show, but something about this rawness gives the whole episode a childlike charm. It's very endearing and natural, and I really like that about old Arthur. The writing, voice acting, and animation really make this feel like a show about kids being kids. Reed and Flumbergast, on the other hand, while still entertaining, is very much a TV show, with less down-to-earth dialogue and voice acting. And that's where Arthur Accused has the main upper hand in my opinion. The Arthur voice for this stretch of the show is my personal favorite, as this VA performs the script well while still sounding like a real kid. Then compare that to modern DW's voice, which is very obviously a young boy playing a character, and the same sentiment applies to the writing. Reed and Flumbergast has its share of quips and funny moments, but Arthur Accused just has this flow to it that makes it feel more natural while still retaining the humor. And lastly, with the animation, Reed and Flumbergast certainly looks polished and professional, yet it doesn't have the same charm and expression that Arthur Accused has. Overall, while both episodes do good jobs at parodying their respective genres and entertaining the audience, Arthur Accused has a retro appeal that you can't find in modern episodes like Reed and Flumbergast. Now, April 9th and Shelter from the Storm are two special episodes in the sense that they are both two-parters and they both deal with natural disasters. April 9th covers a fire at Lakewood Elementary, while Shelter from the Storm deals with a hurricane passing through Elwood City. The past two comparisons dealt with episodes that were fairly lighthearted and mainly for entertainment purposes, but now we're talking about potentially devastating tragedies. So, which episode deals with the weight of this subject matter better? Shelter from the Storm is pretty effective in the deliverance of some of its messages. I like how the episode has Brain prepare for the storm, and yet his shop is still the only one that gets devastated in the hurricane. It's good to show kids that no matter how hard you prepare for natural disasters and for situations in life in general, sometimes things just go wrong. I also liked how the episode introduced professional therapy as a path to recovery, although having the therapist be voiced by Idina Menzel was an unexpected choice. Getting therapy for my anxiety when I was younger was really helpful for me, to the point where I rarely needed anymore. But I only knew about that option because my parents introduced it to me. So I appreciate that Shelter from the Storm introduces therapy to kids, since a lot of them may not understand what it really is. Besides Brain's plotline though, Shelter from the Storm doesn't have a lot to offer in my opinion. It's certainly very informative about hurricanes and their effects, but it feels more like a PSA than a TV show episode. Despite going through a natural disaster, I felt almost no emotion for any of these characters. I was kind of sad for Brain seeing his shop destroyed and seeing him struggle with anxiety, but his voice actor is so flat and monotone that I can't really believe it. I felt bad for Muffy's shelter friend losing her house, although she was so forgettable and impersonal to me that I don't remember her name. I definitely don't feel bad for Muffy, whining cause her billion-dollar house got a little bit of water in it. Oh no! I felt kind of bad for LaDonna, but they had to give her the happy ending and have her dad come back from the hurricane relief at the last second, so it felt like her emotional growth had been stunted. Arthur was just being a good person, raising money for pets. Okay? And everyone else didn't really have a plot line, so yeah. But April 9th, this episode really just punched me in the feelings. I don't know, maybe I'm just being sappy or sentimental towards a show I love, but April 9th nails the emotional moments while still teaching kids about how to deal with fires. Just to list a few: Buster saying goodbye to Mr. Morris as he realizes the leg he broke in the fire is never going to fully heal, Binky opening up to Mr. Franksky after hiding his fear of the fire for so long, Arthur trying to get his dad not to go to work before being forced to open up and having an emotional discussion with his dad. And what makes these moments so great in my opinion is that they feel natural. They're not PSAs in disguise. They feel like real conversations that kids would have with adults. April 9th also exhausts all of the different outcomes of a fire without feeling bloated or rushed. From losing personal possessions, to being afraid for others' safety, to being afraid for your own safety, to not even being present during the fire, pretty much all possible outcomes are explored, and the episode still manages to develop each one to the fullest in 30 minutes. One thing I liked about Sue Ellen's plot wasn't even about Sue Ellen. Sue Ellen loses her journal in the fire, but Muffy fails to understand why Sue Ellen is so sad when she can just buy a new one. A lot of times it's hard for other people to see why someone would be so upset at losing a physical possession, because you know, it's better than losing your life, right? April 9th handles this really well by having Sue Ellen and Muffy come to a mutual understanding. Muffy realizes that no matter how many journals she buys, Sue Ellen may never be happy because her original was so important to her. And Sue Ellen realizes that Muffy is just trying to cheer her up and that it's time to move past the damage done by the fire. Arthur's plotline was the best in my opinion. Arthur's dad happened to be catering at his school on the day of the fire, and while he was able to get out unharmed, it still traumatizes Arthur and makes him afraid to leave his dad on his own. There were a lot of great emotional moments in it that hit home without having to employ a bunch of melodrama or talk to the audience. Arthur getting mad at Buster for trivializing the situation, Arthur faking sick to get his dad to stay home, Arthur's dad relating to his fear and giving him ways to cope. All of these scenes feel so raw and so real. Binky's plotline was the second best in my opinion. For Binky, seeing the fire up close really gets to him, but the other kids are mostly unaffected, and so he tries to hide his fear from everyone else. One of the things I really liked about Binky's storyline was that there was a lot of showing instead of telling. When Binky's watching Bionic Bunny and he sees a supervillain try to burn Bionic Bunny, he doesn't say, "Oh no, that is a fire, and I am still traumatized from the school fire, so I am scared." He just watches in terrified silence before running off. When Binky's walking through Lakewood Elementary for the first time after the fire, he doesn't say, "Oh no, this is making me think of the fire." And that is scary. We see his hallucinations as he imagines the worst. Again, these feel like real moments, and the emotion we feel because of them is just as real. One thing I liked in particular about Buster's storyline is that it explores the possibility of being unaffected by the fire. Buster, in Buster fashion, sleeps in on the day of the fire and misses the whole thing. He starts out acting a bit insensitive to the incident, expressing how he wishes he could have been there, while the others tell him off for trivializing an event that was very real to them. And even though by the end of the episode, Buster is still not really affected by the fire himself, he sees how it has affected the people around him, like Mr. Morris the janitor, and he begins to realize the severity of what happened. Again, with the showing not telling thing, instead of Mr. Morris giving Buster a speech about how fires are serious and they're not something you should treat lightly, he simply tells him that his broken leg might not ever heal after the fire, and Buster realizes his mistake on his own. April 9th handles all of these plotlines so well, and in only 30 minutes. To me, it reaches the level that Shelter from the Storm wanted to reach, but just came short of. April 9th definitely wins this comparison. So, you might have heard me mention something about the old Arthur being more natural or real, natural. Okay, I think we know the conclusion at this point. Modern Arthur fails because it's too scripted. Old Arthur has a lot of moments where it stops feeling like a TV show and where it feels real, which is a rare but wonderful thing to see in entertainment. Modern Arthur is entertaining and definitely better than a lot of kids programming out there today, but it is through and through a scripted TV show made for kids, and that's where it really loses out in my opinion. Still, it's only commonplace for TV shows to hit their expiration point after a while. I just wish it would have lasted long enough so that my future kids could enjoy it too. Oh well. I'll just play the library card song on loop until they start making good episodes again.